I go someplace when I dream. You likely do not remember me, which is fine. I'm forgettable IRL, so I am accustomed to that. But some time ago I posted here concerning troubling dreams, wherein I visit the foundry, or refinery. I know nothing about industrial buildings. Why I might dream of one every night and where I am getting the imagery is a complete mystery to me. Literally every night without fail, I appear in the same spot, curled up on the floor of what appears to be an abandoned and decaying industrial building. At first it was novel, then became distressing. But while I still talk about it in therapy, it's no longer an unwelcome experience. Instead, I regard it as sort of a second home. There's nothing especially welcoming about it, but in exploring the foundry, I've discovered that the layout is persistent, and anything I break or move remains that way in the next dream. Additionally, the machinery makes no sense. I don't know much about how such machinery works, which is why I figured this was the case, but I'm not an idiot. I know what a gear does, I know what a piston does. But in the dream, the machinery is assembled as though by someone with no conception of what machinery is in general. Gears working against each other, belts driving wheels which drive belts, which drive wheels back to the original wheel, with no apparent purpose. It became difficult to accept that my own subconscious was coming up with something like this. At the recommendation of my therapist, I began mapping it out on paper and taking note of any anomalies. For example, on some items there are labels or other blurbs of text in a language which I don't recognize. I can see abstract shapes while dreaming, but they change as I move the object and look at it from different angles, and I cannot clearly recall any individual character when I awaken. In every single dream, I am wearing whatever I had on when I went to bed. I began to experiment by stripping off my clothing in the dream. Of course, when I woke up, I was still wearing that clothing. I don't know what I expected to happen. Once I began mapping and experimenting, a new element of the dream appeared. One or more people following and monitoring me. I would initially never see them, only hear their footsteps or walkways above me, fleeing from me when I tried to chase. There is light coming through windows, but it cannot be natural sunlight. It is a rich shade of sickly orange, and while shadows cast by the sun are all perpendicular to one another, shadows cast by light coming in through the windows are at angles that suggest the light source is much closer. I have tried on many occasions to wipe clean the dirty windows so I can see where the light comes from, or to break them with rocks and rusted tools. Neither of these things works. All the while, I hear the shifting feet of watchers lingering nearby. At any rate, the last time I posted here, you requested that I learn 3D software so that I could provide a map of the area that I have explored so far. I apologize if this is crude, but it's the best I can do with what I've learned in that time. I have color-coded the various relevant portions so I can refer to them if you have any questions. The yellow, rounded room with the tall windows is where I wake up. The green room contains the rows of machinery, the orange things. The blue cylinder is a shaft containing a spiral staircase, with several decks at intervals on the way down. These rounded, carved-out rooms, seemingly concrete or very smoothly cut rock, contain cages all around the outer wall. Sometimes sound or movement comes from them, but they are dark. I cannot see what they contain, and they are locked. One is open and empty. For a long time, I thought the spiral staircase was endless. I shortened it in the 3D map for the sake of showing everything in one picture. It continues for such a distance that, unless I devote the entire duration of my time in the dream to descending it, I do not reach the bottom before waking up. For that reason, I have not explored much at the very bottom beyond what you see. The staircase ends in what looks like some type of old-fashioned office, a rusting metal chair at a wooden desk with a few filing cabinets to one side, looking out over an abyss. Outside, it becomes apparent that the room hangs by the concrete shaft containing the stairwell from the roof of a massive subterranean cavern. Outside, there are a few platforms hanging from the cavern roof by chains, with wooden walkways between them. Below, rather than darkness, there are what look like slowly moving gray storm clouds. I have thrown stuff down into that abyss and never hear an impact, nor can I see any walls of the cavern. The ceiling of it seems to stretch on for miles, receding into darkness. Here is another shot of the hanging building in the cavern, which gives a better sense of scale. The platforms originally had some rotting cardboard boxes and tools on them, all of which I have long since dropped off of the edge, trying to get a sense of how deep the cavern is, to no avail. The clouds below look exactly as you might expect storm clouds to look from an airplane. I am powerfully curious to know what is below them, but too frightened to let myself drop from one of the hanging platforms in order to find out. It isn't really clear what would happen to me. I used to have normal dreams, and some night no dreams at all. This just started all of a sudden one night, and continued ever since, never letting up. If it were someplace pleasant, representative of my desires, it would be explicable. But if I feel anything while there, it is cold, weary, and slightly nauseous. There is a sense that something is wrong with the place. The angles, the colors, the nonsense machinery. Every electric light in there emits the exact sickly orange light that also comes in through the windows, presumably from the outside. There is very little variation in color, from grays to very subdued browns. It feels like decay everywhere. Sometimes I try to fix the machinery, usually without result since it was apparently never designed to work in the first place. But occasionally, I can rearrange it into something that at least moves or makes noise when activated. I feel most intensely watched while doing this, like my observers are trying to learn what the machinery means to me and how it's supposed to be assembled. My therapist is too confident in her interpretations, and they are flattering to an uncomfortable degree. She believes that the incompetently designed abstract do-nothing machinery represents my frustration with an inefficiently organized and operated society, and my struggles to fix some of it and make it work, to whatever small degree, represent struggles in my day-to-day life to change the order of things for the better. This is entirely, in my view, a product of her fondness for me. She is too impressed by what is objectively a pretty dull person, except for these strange nighttime escapades. Perhaps she feels sorry for me. No, to answer your question, I have never tried to write anything in the dreams. I apologize for the delay. I can try writing. I expect some anticlimactic result, like when I experimented with the clothing. The experience seems designed to thwart any effort to try and pry it apart and see it from the outside, literally, with regards to my efforts to get outside of the building. I have this lingering, deep-seated suspicion that if I could see what's outside, it would answer many of my questions about that place. The parts are not the same from machine to machine. They are in some places similar, but never of identical dimensions. The tools are seemingly random in shape. It isn't obvious that they are even designed to do anything. I have searched for similar tools online and found nothing. Some change shape slightly if I look away even for a moment and then look back. I have managed to use them awkwardly to effect minor repairs, only because some are coincidentally shaped such that I can use them as levers or as badly fitting wrenches. Some implements, found mainly on the cage levels, are not tools so far as I can tell. They have sharp jutting points or blades. They might be weapons, but they have hinges, handles, all the trappings of tools. Not all of them can even be used safely without injuring the user. Who designed them and what are they for? I feel like the answers are outside the building, but the harder I try to escape, the further away it becomes. Something always prevents it. There is this strong sense that it's a charade, an inward-facing bubble of illusion, like the set of a television show. If I could find some hole in it, somewhere that the builder forgot to patch up, and get outside, I'm certain I would see it for what it really is. If there is a world outside of it, I cannot imagine it will simply be a city, or countryside, or anywhere intuitive. The cavern seems to preclude that, as does the deep, tungsten light coming in through the tall windows at angles all wrong for sunlight. Perhaps it's all underground, or perhaps there is some land outside of it, with something other than the sun, bathing it in that nauseating orange light. I am desperate to find out, and in the past few nights, every effort has gone towards probing the furthest reaches of the building for some kind of escape. So far, nothing. Have you ever tried holding onto some object like a tool until you woke up, to see if you could bring it with you out of the dream? Yes, with the same result as the clothing experiment. For a time, I accepted that as proof positive that it was in fact just a very persistent, recurring dream. I moved from that to taking very seriously the possibility that I was losing my mind. Following some soul-searching and self-testing, I determined that I am still in fact sane, just rattled by an unusual experience that won't stop. There is something wrong with it. Little things, like there are not any plans. In a lot of these urbex photos of abandoned industrial buildings, there's grass, moss, whatever. Not in the dream. No plants, no rats, no living things other than myself. Little things like that, and the chairs are not all the same size. Some are small enough to not quite be plausibly child-sized, but still difficult to sit in. Others large enough you must hop to get onto them. Often skewed at a slight angle, like slightly melted. Like the tools, none of them are right. I can't believe this is, or a reflection of, any actual industrial building that ever existed. Didn't you say that you saw a creature previously? The boy in the overalls. It was exciting when I finally caught him. I believe he was the source of the footsteps that I had been hearing previously, but even when holding him down, trying to get a look at his face, and discovering only a smooth, featureless expanse of skin where it should be, smooth as an egg, even then I heard the footsteps and shuffling of nearby observers. He has also been following and watching me, but he is not one of them. I have not seen them yet. I think he used to be in the one cage that is not locked, part way down the stairwell. He got outside, or someone let him out. Possibly that's what's in the rest of the cages. This is a close approximation of the color of the light, from outside and from the bulbs. Why this color? I thought it was grime on the bulbs, or that they were tinted. They are not tinted. The glass is dingy but clear. All light, regardless of source, is the same gross orange. The only respite from that is darkness. Sometimes I turn off the lights in the stairwell just to escape that color. That was before I found the cages. Now I don't want to be in that stairwell with the lights off. I can't entertain the thought of being in that cage for more than a moment. That's where the boy in the overalls came from, and I have an unwelcome suspicion that I am intended to take his place. I avoid it now, but it is always in the back of my mind. You should perform some experiments on the boy. See if he or she is in pain. Most likely not. If so, try to cut him a mouth. He is scared. He writhed under me and made muffled, distressed noises through the skin. There was no jaw movement when he made those noises. If I cut into that smooth face, I'm not certain there will be teeth and a tongue underneath it. Perhaps just an equally smooth, featureless skull. I think he knows what is wrong with this place. It could be that he was changed to prevent him from telling me. I've also thought that he might have been someone else who had this dream, that I might end up like him. If I could see into the cages, it might answer that. I tried rigging up a light on a cord, but the shadow inside has substance, volume, like a mist or a cloud. The light only penetrates so far. I can hear something, a grinding and a dull, muffled moaning. I can see hints of motion in the shadow, but nothing more. I hate that part of the building, and I do not want to visit again without good reason. You just said that there were no living things, and now you're saying there was a kid. Why did you not bring up this kid from the start? I meant plants and animals. There is no growth typical of abandoned buildings, nor rats that you would also normally find there. The boy is clearly not a normal human being, and maybe something like a hallucination. His anatomy is impossible. There are no orifices through which he could breathe, for example. Like the machines, there are obvious problems with the logic of how he works. I have tried taking things with me before. I don't think the camera would work. It's like I'm punished for trying to color outside the lines. There's always a carrot being dangled, and I am thwarted every time. Only my clothes ever make it through. I think what is being transferred here is my outer appearance, not objects near or on me. Like a projection of me, almost. Yes, if I make a scratch on the wall or break or move something, it is in fact persistent. Everything is, each night, the way I left it the prior night. That's one aspect that makes it difficult to accept as a recurring dream. Why is it so specific? Why the particular, unusual properties that are consistent throughout the structure? Why that color of light from every single source? Why no bathrooms? Why no exit signs? The drawers have no handles. It's like it was built by someone who only had descriptions of factories, refineries, and so on to work from, but didn't actually understand what they are for. I need to see what's outside to know how much, if any, of my suspicions are accurate. Leave something organic, probably some small amount of food. I'm curious if it will rot until your next visit. I can try to bring food with me, but I don't expect I will have any more success with food than with any other object I've tried to transfer. Is there some removable part of my body, like hair or nails, that would show visible signs of decay over time? I'm not going to cut off a finger or something. I have injured myself, just cuts, in an attempt to see if there would be a fresh wound, or at least a scar when I woke up, and there wasn't. But the pain was absolutely real. I can hurt myself there, and feel it exactly as if I were awake, hence my reluctance to drop from the suspended platforms in the cavern. I have no idea what might happen if I die there. What about feces or vomit? I never feel the need to eat or defecate there, but it stands to reason I should be able to if I try. The time that you undressed yourself in the dream, did you find your clothes where you left them the next time, or were they gone? They were gone. I did think of taking them off every time and building a gradually larger pile. Anything to try and provoke some kind of intervention from whoever watches me while I am there. They might have been taken away and burned after I awoke, or somehow returned to my body, as, of course, I woke up in those same clothes. I could catch the boy in the overalls, but so far, I cannot corner the source of the other footsteps. It is more than one person, and they move as a group, but I cannot so much as catch a glimpse of them. There are so many things I want to ask. Also, try and polish the metal with your clothes, and use it as a makeshift mirror to try and see your reflection. I did this once. I won't do it again. The least rusted metal surface I could find was a boiler. Boilers aren't usually made of reflective metals to my knowledge, but this one was reflective enough that when wiped clean with some spit and my sleeve, I could see myself reflected in it. My face was featureless, identical to the boy in the overalls. It's wrong, or the reflection was distorted. I can see while I'm there, so obviously, I have working eyes. I don't want to try again. I don't want to see that. It's enough to know that I have eyes. I can speak, so I know I have a mouth. When I touch my face, I can feel my mouth and my eyes. I don't need to see my reflection. I am not doing that again. It is not necessary. Hey, Ope, if this is an experiment, I'm betting everything that it's to test the lengths that you will go in order to satisfy your curiosity. That includes experimenting on the boy and self-harm, like cutting off a limb or jumping to your death. That's either the success or failure condition of the test. and the only surefire way to bring it to a conclusion. I am afraid to try this, but at the same time, what you say makes a lot of sense. But so did an earlier suggestion that I try to create order and symmetry by returning the boy to its cage. Both assume it's a game or a puzzle with some way to win or lose. That could also be a red herring. What are you seeing the therapist about? The dreams, originally, but she's part of a university training thing for psychology students. She is not properly qualified, but it's free. I am no longer distressed by the dreams, nor do I still think I am losing my mind, but that doesn't mean I'm okay with it. You have some sense of normalcy and continuity to your life, where nothing obviously abnormal happens in day-to-day experiences, but it happens to me every single night. We aren't made to cope with that. We can handle short bursts of it, but when it's there, night after night, and there is no escape, the anxiety makes it difficult to think clearly. Sometimes I get locked in these patterns of thought where I don't want to remember being in the cage room or looking at my reflection, but I am pulled back to it over and over, like a computational loop, like having to return there every single night. Can you draw one of the rooms up with detail? Not too much, just to understand what it looks like. If you could do the room with the machines, that would be cool, from what you could see if you walked in from the door. I can try that for the next thread. I am not a very good artist. I've been choosing pictures that are as close as I can find. But yeah, if you can tolerate poor drawing skills, I'll do that for the next thread. Why no mirror? It has taken a long time to come to terms with this. I am just now to the point where I've made peace with the knowledge that, based on what I've seen, this will never end, and that each night, regardless of what I want, I have to go back there. It is not so much seeing my reflection that I can't handle on top of all of that. It's what some in this thread have suggested that it means, with regards to the cage and the boy. I'm tired. It's 5 a.m. I have put this off for longer than usual. Once I stayed up for as long as I could, it wrecked me, and it was a useless attempt at defiance. In the end, I still woke up in that room. So long as I need sleep, I won't be able to stay away longer than a few days. Soon I will be there again. I will open up my eyes and see the windows, then the staircase. The full extent of my power is to avoid it as caffeine pills and some other drugs that can delay this for maybe 72 hours, tops. But it's futile. It's like eating a calorie-restricted diet, just to gain it all back in a few years. You still inevitably die. Your current course of actions will not take you anywhere. You're accepting of being an accidental prisoner for the rest of your life. I know. I am willing to try your experiments. That way, at least each night is not identical to the last. That is my small act of dissent. I apologize if it's underwhelming. It's the most I can manage. My grandfather survived the medical convoy massacre at Incheon thanks to a dead man. So this happened to my grandfather. He was a sergeant in the US Army. Weird shit had been happening at his MG position for the entire campaign. There were snow prints of human bodies around his position. Corpses from the corpse wall that they were using as frozen sandbags, moving out of position or slowly crawling away. He chalked it up to just chicanery from the others. He kept whipping sentries and blaming them for letting spies into the perimeter. He eventually pulled back due to a wound to a medical convoy making it up to Incheon. The enemy overrun lines early in the morning after fierce fighting. My grandpa is assigned as Temp MP, as he only has leg injuries so everyone else can dig in. It's blood and fire everywhere. Doctors, patients, and nurses all being shot. Mortars are going off constantly. There were ambulances exploding and throwing shrapnel into surgical operations. He said it was the most horrifying event of his entire life. He had never seen anything like it. This was a man who machine-gunned waves of infantry, by the way. They are getting calls one by one. They are not taking prisoners and wiping out any who surrender. Red Cross workers fleeing or getting ambushed and dying. His CO returned from foxholes looking like a meatbag, just torn up, bloody, and covered in dirt. CO tells Grandpa they are leaving now, and they need to pick up some nurses who are farther north. The CO sounds weird, like he's talking at a briefing and ignoring Grandpa completely. He is also moving almost like a stick figure. Grandpa chalks it up to shock and blood loss. People died trying to get to the supply depot during the night. It's a no-go zone. CO tells him to walk ahead and locate the triage staff. He will grab transport. Grandpa makes it to what is left of triage. He will drive the staff out, and God help the survivors. About an hour later, Grandpa gives up hope of seeing his CO, so they begin walking back towards the lines. After only a few minutes, they find the CO. He is dead in a jeep. The jeep has some holes. The CO has lots of holes. What's weirder though is the CO's front part of his body is just annihilated, absolutely shredded, vital organs missing. Grandpa loads everyone up, and the 20 or so medical survivors from the massacre are thanks to that man. Here is the weird part. Grandpa gets leave to do a eulogy for the man and finds out the CO was some sort of a superhero. He had a crazy amount of medals. He ordered his men to abandon position and assaulted a position with grenades, assume KIA. My grandfather's report about saving them. The brass thinks my poor grandfather was confused and that it was someone else. There were various actions reported about this dead man during the night from other survivors of the line. He was apparently always right there with supplies, running communications, or pulling rank and reforming units. Always through grievous injuries apparently, and surviving actions that had no other survivors. He even apparently jumped on a grenade and survived. My grandpa never talked about his name because he was afraid the dead from Korea would find him, and he told me not to do it either, or they might find his descendants. He said he'd grown convinced that in Korea, in certain places, death is more of an inconvenience than an end, and he's not sure what would happen if they found us. He killed a lot of people. I don't mean like an infantry amount. I mean a lot, like mowing down human wave attacks and then stacking corpses. The ground was too hard to dig, so they got used to stacking frozen corpses around the MJ and Sentry Hills for extra cover, and corpse abuse is a huge fuck you to Asians and their culture. On top of that, fanatics on both sides were shooting anyone trying to retrieve the wounded, so he would spend the nights listening to the wails of the dying. After the first couple of US medics were shot, he taught the other GIs in the area old Imperial Japanese war songs. Grandpa also fought in the Pacific and would sing after every wave. That was as bad as a front as the Eastern Front in World War II. He said that when he was first there was a Korean couple that started running alongside their truck with their baby on a ruck, always keeping up and trying to get to the cab. So him, being insane PTSD, ex-World War II vet, he just shot them, no questions asked. The off-the-boat white GIs flipped the hell out. Exo started tearing him apart when they found out the baby was a bundle of rags and some mines with grenades mixed in, and he got a commendation for it. Those are the stories that Grandpa did tell me, so I can't even imagine the stuff that he took to the grave. This happened to me when I was just a teenager. I used to go for walks around the town I was living in at the time. I used to walk around all the time, day, night, it didn't matter. One time I passed by an old burned down building or whatever a few times. I decided to pop my head inside and just take a look around. There is just rubble and plant life from where nature had started to reclaim the structure. In one of the far corners, I notice a trap door. It looks relatively new compared to the state of what's left of the structure. I open up the trap door, and there is a ladder going straight down. Even with the bright midday sun pretty much directly overhead, I cannot see to the bottom of the shaft. The metal rungs of the ladder are incredibly old and rusty. They look like they would just crumble to dust if I tried to actually climb them. I count about 40 or so down before it becomes too dark and distant to make out the individual rungs. I grab a nearby rock and drop it down. I never even hear it hit the bottom. I decide to come back later with a flashlight or something to see if that will maybe help. I head back the next day. There is a cop car parked outside the building. They are staring right at me. I just keep on walking. 2 weeks or so later, I decide it's time to try my luck once again. There are no cops here this time. I make it to the trapdoor. There is a shiny new chain and a huge padlock holding that thing shut. I turn to leave in disappointment. I nearly shit myself when I find myself face to face with a security camera. I skedaddle at maximum velocity and I never go back. Years later, I get curious again. I don't live there anymore, but I decide to check it out on the street view. The building is gone. It's just a flat concrete pad now, like they poured a foundation and just never built on top of it.